Rain traced silver lines down the window pane, but inside, the small apartment was warm and quiet. Kenji sat on the couch, the tension in his shoulders slowly easing. Beside him, his little sister Yuna was fast asleep, her quiet breathing a comforting rhythm in the silent room. A fresh bandage was wrapped around Kenji's forearm, hiding a burn that hadn't come from any fire. In the kitchen, their older sister Akari carefully poured hot water over coffee grounds. The rich aroma filled the air, but it couldn't distract her from the uneasy feeling she'd had all week. As she glanced out the window, past their reflection and into the glistening city streets, she thought she saw a flicker of movement in the alley across the way. A man in a long coat, his face hidden by shadows. Later, the smell of coffee woke Yuna. "Did you have a bad dream?" Kenji asked softly. Yuna nodded, rubbing her eyes. "The shadows were watching me," she whispered. As she spoke, Kenji felt a familiar, angry buzz under his skin. He clenched his fist, and the lamp on the end table flickered violently as a tiny blue spark danced across his knuckles. The next day, Akari called a friend, her voice low. "I'm not imagining it," she insisted, pacing the small living room. "They're always there, different men, but always in dark coats, always watching. They were watching the girls' school yesterday." She paused, twisting the phone cord. "I'm scared." Kenji knew the feeling of being watched was because of him. He found his way to a specialist, a kind woman named Dr. Arisawa. In her quiet office, she showed him a scan of his own nervous system on a bright screen. It was lit up like a city at night. "Your body produces a unique bioelectric field, Kenji," she explained. "It's extraordinary." Dr. Arisawa's face grew serious. She slid a folder across her desk. "And it makes you a target." Kenji opened it. Inside was a photo of a severe-looking man with cold eyes, Professor Kageyama. "He believes people like you are specimens to be collected and studied. He is ruthless, and he leads a group he calls the Shadows." That night, the fragile peace of their apartment was shattered. The lights flickered and died, plunging the entire building into a sudden, deep darkness. A moment of tense silence. Then the distinct sound of their front door lock clicking open. Two figures, tall and clad in black, stepped into the living room, their forms silhouetted against the faint emergency lights from the hallway. Akari gasped, pulling Yuna behind her. One of the shadows lunged forward, his movements unnaturally fast. But Kenji was faster. He moved between them and his sisters, a low hum filling the air. "You shouldn't have come here," he said, his voice tight with fury. The air crackled, and the first sparks of blue light began to dance along his arms, illuminating the tense standoff in the dark room. The second shadow moved to flank him, but Kenji reacted instinctively. He thrust a hand forward, and a brilliant arc of lightning erupted from his palm, striking the first man in the chest. The shadow was thrown back against the wall with a strangled cry, slumping to the floor as the smell of ozone filled the room. The second intruder froze, his face, for the first time, showing a flicker of shock. The wail of sirens crescendoed outside, and the apartment was suddenly painted in frantic strokes of red and blue light. The remaining shadow, jolted from his shock, shot a look of pure venom at Kenji. "Police! Open up!" a voice boomed from the hallway. The shadow's form seemed to waver, losing its hard edges. The door burst open, and two police officers stormed in, flashlights cutting through the gloom. But they were a second too late. The shadow dissolved like smoke, melting into the darkness in the corner of the room, just as the beams of light passed over him. The officers froze, their eyes locking onto the scene, the unconscious man on the floor, the terrified girls, and Kenji, standing over the body, his hands still crackling with a faint blue energy. "Don't move," one of them yelled, raising his weapon. Akari rushed forward, placing herself protectively between the officer and her brother. "Wait, he saved us," she cried, her voice trembling but firm. Kenji looked from the police to his sisters, the adrenaline fading, replaced by a cold dread. The static in the silence of their lives had become a storm, and they were right in the eye of it. They were no longer just running from the shadows. Now, they were hiding in plain sight.